Okay, so we're in the last sermon of our Sunday night school series, and so Stephen asked me to give a sermon on Rahab. So before we do that, I'm going to pray, and then we can go into it. Lord, I just pray that you'll give me the words to speak tonight. I just pray that you'll soften the hearts of every student here. I'm just so grateful that they get to be here with us today. I just pray that they'll be able to learn something new and go home and be able to show their faith at school for the last couple days. And yeah, I just pray these things in your son's name. Amen. So when Stephen first asked me to give a sermon on Rahab, I was like, who is that? So raise your hand if you've actually heard of Rahab. Okay, we have a couple. So whether you've heard this story one time or like 100 times, just try to look at it from a new view. So given that, I just didn't know how many of you had heard of it before. So I'm going to give you a couple intros on some of the more important parts of the story. So I'm going to give you an intro on Jericho because this is the city Rahab lives in. And Jericho is, the big city with the walls around it. It had a lot of idol worship going on at the time. And so the people who lived in this city, they didn't worship God. They worshiped money, each other, and a lot of other deities. I also wanted to talk about Rahab. So Rahab, she lived in the city of Jericho, and she was described as a prostitute who lived in the walls of Jericho. And when I first heard about this, I was like, that's kind of crazy because in a war, the first thing to go down is the walls. So that just kind of shows that how she was such an outcast in the city that nobody really paid attention to her. But then in the end, she ended up having a great story and brought a lot of people to God. And then our last little intro before we read the story is the intro into the Israelites. So the Israelites were God's chosen people. They were more chose and set apart. They worshiped him. And so when they heard about how Jericho was so into idol worship and stuff, God told them to go and conquer Jericho so that they could bring his kingdom and build it back up on God. So we're going to start reading Joshua chapter 2, verse 1 through 7. Then Joshua secretly sent 2 spies. Go look over the land, he said, especially Jericho. So they went and entered the house of the prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. The king of Jericho was told, look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy on the land. So the king of Jericho sent this message to Rahab. Bring out the men who came to your home, and entered your house, because they have come to spy on the whole land. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. She said, yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they had come from. At dusk, when it was time to close the city gate, they left. I don't know which way they went. Go after them quickly. You may catch up with them. But she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them under the stalks of flax that she had laid out on the roof. So as the men set out in pursuit of the spies on the road that leads to the fords of the Jordan, and as soon as the pursuers had gone out, the gates were shut. So this was kind of a lot. So basically what happened is the Israelites are trying to get the lay of the land. They're trying to understand what they're about to be conquering. So yeah. And then going back to the spies, they're just trying to collect information. And the reason why they went to Rahab's house is, as we discussed before, she was more of an outcast in the city of Jericho. So it wouldn't have raised much suspicion for her to go there, or for the spies to go there. And then as we find out in verse 2, the king finds out that these spies have entered his kingdom. And so he sent his own detective out to find these spies. But when they get to Rahab's house, she keeps their whereabouts a secret, so that's kind of important. So keep that in your mind as we keep reading in verse 8. Before the spies lay down for night, she went onto the roof and said to them, I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water on the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the first 2 kings of the Amorites of the east of Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on earth below. So here Rahab is kind of saying her thoughts out loud. She's like talking about how God has helped the Israelites and all these things that she's heard of. And she kind of grew up in the city of idol worship, so they don't really talk about God as much because they have so many other idols to be worshiping. So she is kind of like just describing all the things that God has done for the Israelites and how great it is. And it's one of the biggest turning points in the story because Rahab actually says that God is the God of heaven and above. And so when you grow up in a city that is like not built on God's kingdom at all, it's kind of crazy to think about that. So yeah, we're going to pick up in verse 12. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family. This is Rahab talking. Because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to me. And that you will save us from death. Our lives for your lives, the men assured her. If you don't tell what we are doing, we will treat you kindly and faithfully when the Lord gives us the land. So she lets them down by a rope through the window from the house she lived in that was part of the city wall. She said to them, go to the hills so the pursuers will not find you. Hide yourselves there for 3 days until they return, and then go on your way. Now the men said to her, this oath you have made us swear will not be binding on us unless we enter the land. You have tied the scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down, and unless you have brought your father, mother, your brothers and sisters, and all your family into the house. If any of them go outside your house in the street, their blood will be on their own heads. We will not be responsible for those who are in the house with you. Their blood will be on our head if our hand is laid on them. But if you tell what we are doing, but if you do not tell what we are doing, we will be released from your oath that you made us swear. Agreed, she replied. Let it be as you say. She sent them on their way, and they departed. And she tied the scarlet cord on her window. So this is kind of where Rahab makes a trade with the spies. She's saying that if she promises to keep their secret so that they can conquer the town or the city, they will spare the lives of her family, and all her loved ones. And so the spies kind of take her up on this, and then they give her 3 conditions. So the 3 conditions are, she must distinguish her house from the others by hanging a scarlet rope out of the window so the Israelites would know which house to spare. The second one is her family must be inside the house during the battles. And then the third one is she must not turn on the spies later. So these are the 3 things that you kind of want to keep in mind. And the first rule is like kind of the biggest one today, so I'm going to go deeper into that. So like the first rule refresher is she must distinguish her house from the others by hanging a scarlet cord out of the window. And then I wanted to talk about the significance of this cord. The rope is in the story of Rahab, is used as a tool to distinguish her house between the others so that the Israelites know which house to spare in the war. And the spies made it very clear that if she does not hang this rope out of her window, then it won't be their fault when her house comes crashing down with the rest of the city. The rope is used as like a badge of newfound faith that she has received in verses 9 through 11. So I'm going to come and do like this cup visual, but I need a volunteer. Thea, you can come up here. Okay. You ready, Thea? Okay. So I want you guys to think of these 3 cups as houses. You're kind of like, Thea, how do you feel to be in the town of Jericho? You know those houses? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I want you to pick the house that you think Rahab is in. Which one do you think she's in?
This one?
Okay, how do you know she's in that one?
I don't.
Yeah, you don't really know. She's just guessing. Okay, you can go. You just don't know how she knows. Gosh. Okay. So now we're going to come to this one. This is the same thing. So now which one do you think she's in? This one, of course. How do you know?
Because there's the red.
Because there's the red roof. Okay. Good job. Now you can see that. You can go back. Okay, so based off this visual, it kind of just shows that if Rahab weren't to hang the window or to hang the cord out of her window, the spies would have never been able to keep her family alive, and they would have never been able to kind of get the lay of the land before. So it's a big turning point for when Rahab wears her faith on her sleeve. She ends up being able to contribute to the city of God, to be able to contribute to building it back up. So just putting it all together, I'm going to sum up the story. Rahab was a woman in a city full of sin, but salvation came when she had the opportunity to bring God's kingdom into the city, and she took it just as she should. And then to symbolize her faith, she hung a satin robe out of her window to show that she was a Christ follower and she was saved. And to put the whole thing together, we're going to talk about how it's important to wear your faith on your sleeve so that you can build up the city of God. And I kind of wanted to think of it as a way that teens could connect with. So I connected it with sports. So if you're amazing in a sport and you only ever practice alone, you don't ever talk to anybody else about a sport, you just do it alone, nobody's ever going to know how fantastic you are at your sport. You won't be able to help other people on a team learn how to help them build up the team. You won't be able to contribute to a team. You won't be able to have other people help you build up. So it's kind of like if you don't show your faith, then other people won't be able to help you build it, and you won't be able to help build other people up. So this is why standing out in a world full of sin is so important. Just as Rahab did, she showed her faith and she was able to help build the city of Jericho back up. So we're going to read chapter 6, verses 22 through 25 to see how it kind of ended when she put her robe out of her window. Okay, verse 22. Joshua said to the two men who had spied out on the land, "Go into the prostitute's house and bring her out and all who belong to her, in accordance with your oath to her." So the young men who had done the spying went and brought Rahab out, her mother and father and brothers and sisters, and all who belonged to her. They brought out the entire family and put them inside a camp of Israel. Then they burned the whole city and everything in it. And they put the silver and gold and articles of bronze and iron into the treasury of the Lord's house. But Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute with her family and all who belonged to her, because she hid the men Joshua had sent as spies to Jericho. And she lives among the Israelites to this day. So that kind of just shows that Rahab was taking up a new faith. She was trusting God, a God that she had never really heard about before, to be able to build his city up. So I wanted to be able to give you guys a way to remind you to show your faith and wear your faith on your sleeve. So we have the bracelet and then like red rope. So whenever you go out, you can wear it and understand that showing your faith on your sleeve, it helps you, it helps the city of God, it helps everybody around you. So we're going to pray, and then you guys can go to a small group. Lord, I just thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I thank you for Stephen and all of our leaders. I just think that they're so wonderful and that you have put them in each one of our lives. I just pray that each student can get something out of the message, and that we can understand that wearing our faith on our sleeve is so important, and that building your city up is one of the best things that we want to do. And I just pray that you bless our small group, that good conversations will come. I just pray that we have a good rest of the week at school, and amen. Okay. You can go ahead, please.